Welcome back to Manga Storian's Complete Story Series. We're going to be covering Berserk, chapter 171 to 176. Now in our last video, Guts managed to rescue Casca before she was burned at the stake by Mosgus and the refugees. Now focusing his sights on Mosgus, Guts went back to attack the priest directly, so he started changing forms. And even with the strength of an apostle, Mosgus was defeated by Guts after he was able to chip away a part of his armor covering his body. With the demon slowly consuming most of the refugees, the egg of the perfect world watches from above, thinking that soon, everything in his world will disappear. He then talks to the demon child, who has now been given human form, saying, "This is our last moment." The demons still begin to close in, and the refugees all begin to flood into the tower to try and get away. Behind them is Azan and the Holy Chain Knights, trying to push back what they can. But before the refugees can even get it, one of the knights calls out that they're shutting the gate! Azan turns back trying to tell people to wait, but the refugees inside don't respond, leaving the Holy Chain Knights out with the demons. Elsewhere inside, Nina picks herself up from her fall off the tower, trying to find a place to hide. However, with the injuries from the fall, she doesn't get very far as she trips and falls to the ground. Nina cries, shouting that it hurts. She needs help. Won't anybody please help her? Suddenly, they hear the rush of all the refugees managing to make it inside, and she asks if any of them can help her. As the group gets closer, they don't answer, and they continue running towards her. Just before she stomped on, someone runs by grabbing Nina, pushing her out of the way of the stampeding refugees. Luca's voice tells her that it looks like she was able to save her. Sorry for being so late. Nina begins to cry, and Luca says that they don't really have time for emotions right now. They need to find a place to hide. She looks around and sees an empty barrel and tells Nina to get inside. As she does, Nina asks, "What about you though? I can't be alone. I'll be too scared. If you don't come with, then I won't stay in the barrel." Luca takes the lid off and bops Nina, telling her that the barrel isn't big enough for the both of them. She then says that she may be a coward, but perhaps someone like her can survive this. Nina tries to say something, but Luca slams the lid down, knocking her back in. Back along the wall, Guts and the rest of them look for a way to escape, and then they notice the demons straying away from Mosgus's burning body. While everyone tries to figure out what to do, Guts throws a pile of sticks onto the ground, telling everyone, "If you don't want to die, pick one up." Farnese watches Guts, thinking, how could all of this have even happened? Why is this man so sure that he can survive? And Guts tells everyone, "We will survive this." Farnese asks herself, why is this man's voice having such an impact on everyone? With everyone armed with torches, the group begins to push back against the demons, and they begin to make their way towards the gates. As Farnese continues to ask, why is all of this happening? It's exactly like the night that Guts had taken her and they were attacked by those dogs. One of the demons leans up and then it starts to fall, making its way towards Farnese. Just before the demon can bite down, the head explodes and Farnese hears the slamming of Guts' sword on the ground next to her. She looks up to see Guts wielding his sword with one hand and while still trying to carry the burning pole in the other. He says that if she doesn't want to die, she should start swinging too. More demons begin to crawl up from behind and Farnese begins to put her hands together to pray. But before she can, Guts shouts, "Do not pray! Instead of putting your hands together, try spreading them out and fighting back!" Just as the demons close in, Farnese and the others begin to thrust their torches and the demons back away. Meanwhile, inside of the tower, the refugees rush towards the top, and as they do, the tower itself begins to shift. Refugees begin to fall back down, and as they do, the demons start to consume them! Suddenly, a massive wave of souls begins to rush up the side of the tower, taking and absorbing anything that they can touch, and at the top, the egg of the perfect world says that everything in his world will carry hope, and soon everything will be one! A light begins to shine from the top of the tower, and a small child inside of the egg of the perfect world begins to change, taking on a larger human form. And then as the egg closes his eyes, it begins to crack. All at once, the souls begin to scream and the tower begins to crumble. And as it collapses, the morning sun begins to shine down, bringing the light to the dark battlefield. While everyone begins to crawl out of the wreckage, Guts takes his cloak and he wraps Casca up in it. Right next to them, the barrel begins to move and its lid pops open. Nina stares for a moment and then she asks if she actually survived. Puck shouts, "It's Nina!" And Nina says that they have to go look for Luca. Please, you have to find her. Everyone calls out for Luca and then a voice calls out, "Over here!" Everyone tries to figure out where the voice came from and they all look at the well. And Luca shouts that if they can pull her up, that would be nice. It's kind of cold down here. After getting her up, Nina runs and cries as she grabs onto Luca, and Luca says that it would seem that she's still alive. While everyone starts to regroup, something shoots through the air, and Guts spins back. Spears are thrown all around and Ishidoro asks, "What's going on?" As the dust settles, everyone starts to see figures walking towards them, all with hoods covering their faces. Jerome asks, what are the Kushins doing here? From atop of a hill, Salat steps out in his Bakiraka, the Tapasa, asks if it's him. Salat says that something happened here. They seem to be the only survivors of whatever catastrophe just happened. Capture them all, and do not take their eyes off the Black Swordsman for a second. The Kushin scouts start to charge in and Guts hacks through the group, shouting for anyone who can fight to do so. As the women all watch, a rope is thrown on top of them and the two scouts hold them in place. One spins a razor-sharp disc, saying that if any of them move, he'll kill them. And just as he finishes saying that, his head is bashed in by a giant iron staff. Azan says, "How dare you use women as hostages? I will teach you something." He then looks at Farnese and he tells her, "It's great to see you alive." Salat tells everyone to get ready. And as he says that, the ground begins to rumble. And out from the wall, Zod bursts through, stepping on the scouts in his way. He roars in, charging through the crowd. And as Guts looks back, he sees the Skull Knight standing on the wall. The Skull Knight points, and as Guts looks in that direction, his eyes, they widen. Across the destroyed tower shines a light with white feathers floating all around it. And then Griffith's face appears. At that moment, there is no fighting as everyone watches as Zod walks over to the newly reborn Griffith. As he reaches out, he kneels. Guts begins to feel all of the hatred building up, and as he steps forward, he hears Casca. Salat shouts for the scouts to seize that man. This is their chance before the main army arrives. And as the scouts all rush towards Griffith, Zod stands up, tearing through the group. Casca reaches out towards Griffith, trying to form words, but nothing comes out. And just as the group decides to run, the sounds of horses can be heard. The rest of the Kushin main army arrives. The group ducks to avoid being spotted, and that's when they see Zod. And riding atop of him is Griffith. The screams of the Kushin army can be heard, and everyone looks back to see Guts riding through, ripping his way through the army. Ishidoro says that it looks like this is where they must part. "Say goodbye, ladies!" And just as he leaves, another voice calls out, but this time for Nina. When she looks back, she sees Joachim, and he tells her that since that incident, he's been hiding in the mountains. He wanted to apologize. He was so scared of her. He felt as though if he didn't tell the army about this, those people would have killed him. He just wanted to say that she may not trust him, but he really wanted to be with her. He just couldn't be brave all of the time. He's sorry. As Joachim turns to leave, Nina tells him to wait. And elsewhere, Farnese looks at the destroyed tower and she thinks about how this place, something that represented her faith, could be so easily knocked over. Was this the faith that she was really fighting for? No, it was just a place that she could run to get away from the darkness as a child. She starts to take off her armor and tells Serpico to come along. She wants to follow the Black Swordsman. Serpico tells Azan that it looks like they'll be leaving now. He would like to thank him for all of his caring and help. And as Farnese walks towards the path that Guts cut through, she thinks that even in the darkness there was one person who stood up to it. She will now follow that lead and follow the swordsman. That man will be her guide. Back with Nina, Joachim asks if she's sure, and Nina says that if she goes back, she may not be able to stand by herself. That's why she will leave Luca's care, so that she won't end up hating and depending on her, and then start to hate herself once again. Joachim holds out his hand and the two begin to walk off together. Meanwhile, with Luca, Jerome, and the girls, they wait for Nina to return, and Luca says that that girl really is a spoiled brat. But across the fields, the Skull Knight looks on, saying that from the crack, the shape of the world has changed. It's time for a new story to begin here in Berserk, for things to get even crazier, and for Guts to chase after Griffith again. I hope you're as excited as I am for the story to continue, and I'll see you next week, right here at Manga Storian.